I guess here we go. We'll see when this thing kicks in here. So apparently there's been this thing going on with some truckers over there in Canada. We're going to take a little bit of a look what's going on and, kind of do a little bit of an update. While I wait for my thing to spool up, it sounds like audio and everything is good. It doesn't look like there's even anybody here yet. That's fine. We're just going to read through the articles about what's going on. And sure, Frank did a stream yesterday or day before talking about what's going on in Canada. I guess it was only a matter of time before those people cracked. They took away their hockey. What are they supposed to do, man? They ain't got no hockey. Well, they're going to go on a riot. And apparently, anyone who knows anything about it, basically every trucker in Canada decided that, pretty much live out of my truck anyway, and we're going to go do a protest deal about all of the cooties nonsense that's going on. And of course, the news makes it out to be that these are people who are anti-vaxxers, those dirty anti-vaxxers. Right? And it turns out that these truckers are actually mostly actually got the jabs because there are people who transit the Canadian and the U.S. border on a regular basis as part of doing deliveries because it's a shorter route, or if you're delivering to America or whatever. And that was part of the thing to go between countries is you got to have your little jab. Most of these truckers already got that. Okay. So they're actually about going on about the mandates and all this stuff is nonsense and doesn't exist. And that's what they're doing out there in Canada. And probably the least place that I would expect it is like, what are you guys doing in Australia? You're on an island. I'm sure you have truckers. I'm sure you have people. And thanks to the Canadians, everybody else is kind of stepping up. And apparently everybody, this is kind of a scary thing. Everybody's got planned trucker revolts in all these different areas, which is kind of spooky as to like, is this stuff real or what's going on? But the best information that we get, it seems the trucker Canadian movement is actually a real deal. It's not any kind of nonsense with it. It's real people and they're doing their thing. And it's more or less succeeded because their El Presidente has hunkered down and said, "Oh, I got cooties. I can't go deal with this." Right. And, that's cool. And they threw out whoever the other guy was who was in opposition to him. And that's kind of how things get done. But right now they're just kind of sitting there and just kind of a dangerous thing. I mean, just giving the government time to try and co-opt or to try and do a false flag or try to do this, try to do that. I hope they have a plan. I really hope these guys have a plan. Otherwise it's going to end up like what Seattle had the hobos took over Seattle for like a month or two and that just kind of went away. And, I hope that there's more that becomes of this, even just getting people motivated and stirred up. It's like, if you're sitting on money, you don't know where to donate it to. This looks like a pretty good cause, right? Unless you think everyone needs to be jabbed for your safety, even though you're triple jabbed yourself, everybody else needs to be jabbed too, right? Whatever nonsense that all means. Hey, Frank made it. Hey, Frank, if you want to come on and talk about it, because this is all you, brother. This is all you. I know you're saying that you're hanging out with them guys and stuff. That'd be cool to talk about. I was just going to read an article and kind of get up to date with what these guys are doing and what other people are organizing actually in the United States. And, I always get a little spooked when people are starting to organize things and it's like a centralized deal, and we maybe talk about the old centralized GoFundMe who wants to take everybody's money away. It's like, Frank says Ottawa is the big one, but there are a lot of them all around Canada. Kids are walking out of school. Well, you're going to tell me about all this stuff, man. You're going to tell me about all this stuff. I'll send you a link. You want to come on? All right, that's out. Cool, Frank. I just sent the email, so that's what's going on. In the meantime, while we're figuring that out, I'll probably might have to get my headphones, but we'll find out if there's an echo or not. We'll just do the setup now. There's only a couple of people here. So for anybody who doesn't know anything about anything that's been going on, as far as the protest deal about the old cooties restrictions and mandates, U.S. truckers gearing up for convoy in D.C. is sprung from trucker protest in El Canada there. And they're talking about where the Canadians are kind of shutting down the border. They're shutting down Ontario, is it? I don't know. Frank can tell me when he gets on. They're going to the capital, and it's like we had the Million Man March in the early 2000s where everyone went to go protest something or other. No one even remembers. But basically, you can't do anything in the city because there's trucks everywhere. And it's actually a Guinness Book of World Records largest convoy, but Guinness Book says that they don't qualify for having the largest convoy because they didn't file the paperwork. So there's something like 50,000 on the low end. On the low end side of the numbers of trucks, 50,000 trucks that are in the cities, which means that your food is not getting delivered, which means that none of your, video games or your televisions are not getting delivered because people have more important things to do, like fight oppression and standing up for themselves. And that's going to, unfortunately, the longer things go on, we're going to have more and more people and we'll have more and more sentiment like the truckers need to go do their job because I'm entitled to have things on the shelf when I want them. I'm entitled to have my crackers on the shelf. I'm entitled. Right? So they're going to be all mad when they go to the store and their crackers aren't on the shelf. Right? It's just how it is. And then people are going to be anti-trucker. But when you realize like what they're doing and they're actually doing something, they're actually fighting a peaceful revolution, more or less, without, it gets the point across, no violence, no nothing. And, it kind of relates back to like the Teamsters and Jimmy Hoffa, which of course that organization was co-opted, but in the initial thing where you have monopoly laws and you have all these things, it's the people who are actually doing the job have the power. And don't let anyone ever convince you otherwise. The IRS does not have the power over you. Okay. The government does not have the power over you unless you agree to it. But when you don't agree, and you got a couple of other people who don't agree, and you've got a mass decentralized network called the internet, and maybe some video feeds based on blockchain that are completely decentralized that no one can shut down, you have a voice and you do have power. And Canadians are proving it out there. So we have here is talking about the protest here. It's Ontario, and they're talking about the border crossings, and that's kind of started with the border crossings. But before this really even got going, Trudeau rescinded the thing that says you have to be cootie jabbed to cross the border before it even really started. So it's not at all about that. It's about everything and all the nonsense. So these people are fighting for everybody's rights. Okay. Everybody's. And I'll go back to a video I did a few days ago or a week ago or something like that, talking about Kazakhstan. Okay. Those people absolutely revolted and decimated anything to do with government, anything to do with the healthcare system, anything to do with banksters, and the news media. And they burned all that stuff down and took all them people out. Okay. Those are people who are fighting for freedom. And that's kind of something to look at and to go like, that's how you do it. All right. That's how you do it. And of course, what the Canadian truckers are doing is working as well. Oh, Shep's got cooties. Shep's got cooties. So it says the blockades represent a potentially dramatic escalation for protests that began in late January when a convoy of truckers moved into Ottawa, paralyzing Canada's capital city. Okay. how does that paralyze an entire city? They want to say it's a handful of miscreant, dissident, whatevers. How does that paralyze an entire city? Obviously, because they're lying. Now, this is MSNBC, whatever. I just Googled it, right? There isn't a whole lot of news, even using tricks like VPNs and going from different countries and searching this stuff. They're really trying to keep a lid on it unless they want to spin a narrative. And of course, the Fox News narrative is, oh, they're fighting for freedom, the freedom fighters. And look at what Trump said. Look at what Trump said. Trump's going to get our back. And then the MSN thing is, how dare these selfish people honk their horns and they just refuse to get cootie vaxxed. Okay, that's the narrative. It's dumb. This pandemic has sucked for all Canadians, the Prime Minister told lawmakers in an emergency debate Monday evening. Everyone's tired of cooties, but these protests are not the way to get through it. Well, what is? What is the way? Let's just round everybody up and put them in camps. That's the way to get through cooties, right? This the nonsense there. Government officials and law enforcement, meanwhile, have been struggling to come up with ways to contain the demonstrations, often squabbling over jurisdiction. Is that the problem? Is that the problem? Or is the problem that you're outnumbered about 10,000 to 1? Right? There isn't 50,000 National Guard or police force in Canada. I would highly doubt it. Canada's only got less than 100 million people. I could be wrong. Frank can tell me all about that, but the idea they actually have that many National Guard or police force in that area, no, they don't. They're completely outnumbered. And they're all going to say they have cooties, so they don't have to deal with the situation. That's all there is. There is increasing chatter on social media that truckers who have been championed on Fox News, oh, a dirty fox, and repeatedly endorsed by Donald Trump, intend to begin setting up blockades in the U.S. See, it's immediately what you're getting from this garbage media is, rather than actually tackle any problem, we're going to point at your competitor, Fox News. We're going to point at Donald Trump. Apparently, because every single person who ever watches MSNBC is a liberal, communist. I don't think MSNBC really goes over too well in Russia. They're all commies. What's the difference? We'll get into the difference later. State of emergency. Police in Windsor said the bridge reopened to U.S. bound traffic. This is all about the crossing of the border like it's a big deal. We'll go down. Canadian Prime Minister had largely been out of sight during the protest after testing positive for cooties a week ago and going into isolation. This is a guy who I'm pretty sure was on the news media getting a jab and getting boosters. Now, if you took a polio vax 4 times and you ended up getting polio, wouldn't that kind of make you question? No alarm bells would go off there. You're taking a preemptive measure to make sure you don't get something multiple times, and then you get it. On Friday, he said calling in the military was not in the cards. No, because calling in the military wouldn't do anything and you'd look stupid. They already tried calling in the tow truck people. They already tried calling in every resource that they possibly had to try and deal with these truckers, and people aren't going to do it. Want to know why? Because people know who they are. I wouldn't do it either. There isn't any government job that pays enough to go against 50,000 people when you know you're in the wrong. Look at Kazakhstan, people. How did it turn out for those soldiers and those police officers who listened to their president in his last tweet before he fled the country? How did it turn out for those guys? Now you're going to do that, and you're going to tell Trudeau's going to tell the Canadian military to go after him? Trudeau's administration made it clear Monday it's not up to the federal government to police Ottawa, our government to police Ottawa, though they have begun to provide Royal Canadian Mounted Police resources to help with, okay, they're saying it's a city problem. That's what you do when you have no power. You see, when a city or a county in America is doing something that the federal government does not like, okay, the federal government comes in and brings all the force of the federal government down on the county to put them in line. A good example of that is fluoride. In Minnesota, there are several towns that actually voted out fluoride to not have fluoride in the water system, and the federal government in there and basically put sanctions on the state of Minnesota until they relented and had to continue putting fluoride in the water. But then when there's a problem that they don't want to deal with, it's like, oh, that's a city problem. That's a county problem, right? That's who you're dealing with, obviously. In his address to the legislature, Trudeau took a hard line against protests. He took a hard line against, I thought he was a liberal. Isn't that what liberals do? They protest things. Hard line against protests. While dismissing contentions from the opposition conservatives that columns of big rigs parked along major thoroughfares in Ottawa are emblematic of a country bitterly divided over the pandemic. I don't think that they're bitterly divided. I think that everybody supports the truckers, except the liberals that, blog all day long and play video games all day long. They don't like the honking. That's what I hear. That's the biggest crime that the truckers have, is they're honking too much. Yeah. This is a story of a country that's got through this pandemic by being united. Really? I think the fact that there's a protest it means that it's not united. And a few people shouting and waving swastikas does not define who Canadians are, Trudeau said. So they have, like, I've seen the pictures of it. There's a half a dozen people that are in this thing that all the media surrounds. And of course, this is the PSYOP. This is the government agents. Now, my question is that, as if I was there as a trucker, why I would not beat those people down and steal all their stuff and take their clothes off and actually show who they are and capture their, why isn't everybody videotaping them as to go, this is a PSYOP, these aren't us, right? Why is that not happening? Because you're inviting bad press. You're inviting these things. If you don't clear up the house, okay, you can say that, okay, everybody's entitled to do what they want to and protest this and that and say what they want to in these things. But it's not a normal situation to have 50,000 trucks in Ottawa and you have a little tiny group of obvious government agents in there trying to co-opt things. Why don't you take care of business? Trudeau slammed the protesters trying to blockade our economy, our democracy, and our fellow citizens' daily lives. Okay, here's what's funny about this is and even the liberals don't understand this, right? The protesters are the Canadians. Okay. They're not just some outsider truckers. These are actual, Canadians. They're the people who provide the service of bringing you your breakfast cereal or your televisions or whatever it is that you want, or crap from Amazon. All right. These are the people. And they're trying to blockade our economy. Yeah. Because you're doing them wrong. If you're done wrong at your job every single day that you go there, would you not quit your job? But if you work for the government, when the government's the problem, you can't really quit the government, can you? You have to do something different. And that's what they're doing. I just think it's funny that the government is trying to make enemies out of its own people. And their army is a whole bunch of liberals who don't do anything. They're the guys drowning in debt, playing video games all the time, and have nothing productive to do to society except for, virtue signal that I just got my fifth jab. That's your army. Trudeau accused the demonstrators of effectively trying to overrun last September's election result, which election fraud. I mean, whatever. That's how it goes. We are at a crisis point only with what's going on out the doors across the country, but over the country overall, Bergen said Monday night, and so much of it is because of the things that is that he has said and done. So this is somebody who's trying to step up into the counter to Trudeau. You know, they hold up two sock puppets, but the person who's really controlling everything is the guy who's got his hands up the butts of the sock puppets. And then this one guy who's on the right hand of the sock puppet, he got thrown out, and everyone's like, yay. And then the guy puts another sock on the hand and goes, oh, look, I'm somebody. I'm all for you. I love the truckers, right? And that's what this is. Unfortunately, that's what it is. Trudeau again insisted Canadians are united. All right. He also praised a handful of conservative lawmakers who have called for the protesters to leave Ottawa's streets while imploring others to follow suit. I don't know. So at this point, I don't know. You know, I'm kind of worried as to like, they've accomplished their mission, right? They made it there and they shut down the city. So now what? They're just going to sit there and wait. All they're doing is kind of like giving their opposition a lot of time to figure out how to make them look terrible. And that's kind of the unfortunate situation there. All we can hope is that other countries like America's got a little thing planned to go to DC and somewhere in Europe, some of these countries who haven't, most of Europe has caved and said, we're not doing anything. We're going to call cooties the flu and we're not doing anything. They're all scared of Kazakhstan. They don't want to be strung up. But in these bigger countries, they're still kind of trying to carry on this stuff. And they're, you know, a lot of truckers in these areas are going to do their thing, same as like Canada, and it's going to shut the country down. So regardless of what's going on in the economy and regardless of inflation, you know, you're not going to have food, guys. Your shelves are going to be empty, at least for a few weeks. If the thing in America is a real thing, and you're just not going to have any food. Canada is probably going to be struggling here. I don't know. Frank can talk about that and see what the difference is in the shelves. Let's see. Thought I saw, yeah, I saw Prep and Mama. I saw your last video about your shelves. I'm not sure exactly where you live. I don't remember. I mean, you told me offhand, but like, yeah, that's what it's going to be. And everyone's just going to be mad at the people who are protesting because people are babies, you know, and they need to be taken care of by Papa government. And that's how it is. So things need to go quicker. You can't just camp out and expect things to like get better. It's like, we got to have like some sort of a goal and some sort of a plan. And that's how I look at that. But, you know, I am just a dumb American outsider, and I'm just kind of collecting information from different places and kind of see how things are going. And Canada has never been one for big false flags and big psyops and stuff. So maybe they got some time there, but man, if that was America, and a truck sit there for a week and there'd be something going on. There'd be something going on and they go, oh, look over here. And all the shelves would be bare. And it's like, it would be nothing but 24/7 blame the truckers for not doing their job. And that's what it would be. And everyone's like, yeah, they need to get to work to give me my lollipops. Not realizing that all those people are just going to quit and you're still not going to get your lollipops and you're going to be even more enslaved by the government. Oh, whatever. Whatevs. Frank, you popped in and I did not hear the beep. Sorry. Are you there?
Oh, yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can. You're on the stream as far as I can tell, but I don't hear anything from you.
Oh, okay. I can hear you, but I just
beeps at me when somebody joins the stream, but it did not do that for you.
Okay. Let's see.
I'll check out chat while you figure that out. All right. Oh, we got Shep here. There's a video of one tow company that tow farmers. Imagine how they aren't terrified their business is ruined. Oh, Preppy Mama, you're saying that somebody actually did tow somebody's stuff. I do want to talk about the farmers thing too, but yeah, as I recommend is most people should watch Dollar Vigilante. He's an anarchist guy, and you're not going to agree with his stuff. He's not a Christian dude, but he's been awake and knowing about what's been going on for 20 years. Okay, he knows all of this stuff, and he looks on the outside and sees what's going on and has talked about all of these things. And you see talking about the tow trucks, and where he gets information from and his reporters, and he has a whole team of people that collect information for him. We're talking about the tow truck drivers. He had a video clip of actually somebody who was reporting on it, saying that the city had actually called around to all the tow agencies to try and get these trucks out, and the tow agencies said that they had cooties, so they would be unable to move the truckers. Okay, which is a perfect play. You could not play it. That's the perfect play. Anytime the government asks anything of you, I got cooties, I can't do it, right? Especially in something like this, there's nothing they can do. They're bound by their own garbage, their own nonsense. And that's the perfect play. And the army could do that, the police could do that, everyone could do that. Yeah, we all got cooties, we can't work for the next 2 weeks, right? And that's the perfect play. And I'm amazed that there would actually be a tow company out there that thinks, well, if they're not going to do it, I'm going to soak up all this money. It's like, yeah, you're not going to have a business anymore. You probably won't have a house anymore. No, you're done. Look at Kazakhstan, where real men and real people stick up for their rights. You look what happens. Yeah, I'm amazed that somebody actually tried towing stuff. Okay, Frank, you're added to stream again. You're working?
Yes. I don't know if you can hear me now.
No.
Okay. Well, I guess the audience says that they can hear me, but for some odd reason, Max can't hear me. So I can hear him.
Shep's got cooties. You better put your mask on there on the other side of chat. I don't want to catch it. Kevin says you hear him. I don't hear him. Is it just me? Oh, it's just me. Now I feel like a total fool. No, I have my speakers on. Well, let's see.
Can you hear me?
Must be a StreamYardian thing.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? This can be.
I'm just playing back some stuff.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, I can hear you on the playback. Well, that's terrible. How am I going to fix this? Boy, I don't know. Now it says I'm muted. Then it all went around.
I don't know if you can hear me. Can you hear me now?
Can people hear me?
Yes, I hear her. I can hear Max.
All right. Well, I can't hear him, so that's terrible. Here's what I'm going to have to do. I'm going to have to be at like a 5-second delay and use my headphones, because for whatever reasons, it's not coming out of StreamYard, just into my speakers. Very annoying.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
All right, so I'm gonna have to be on a delay, I guess, but that's okay. Frank, how you doing?
I'm good. And how are
I
you?
can hear you in a delay. Yes.
Yeah, that's a major delay.
All good. Tell us about your truckers.
Well, it just so happens that Trudeau did get double vaxxed. He got the booster shot. And as the truckers were rolling in, or close to the time, he was around somebody that had COVID. And so just to take a precaution, he was going to isolate himself. Then during isolation,
Oh, could have been possibly.
so then during isolation, then he got tested because it was a few days into his isolation already. Then he got tested positive for COVID. First he tested positive, negative, and then he tested positive. So needless to say, he got to go on an island and sit there.
Yeah. Well, what else? It actually shows you who actually runs the country. Obviously, he's not needed. Somebody else is in charge.
Oh yeah, he's not needed at all. And he says that we're like it's the fringe minority when in actuality, conservatives actually did get the majority votes in Canada. So it's not that that he won the major seats and that's how he got in. But more people actually voted conservative. So he's not actually running the majority of people in Canada.
I'm gonna try something here.
Yeah, no problem.
I'm gonna try something.
Can you hear me now?
No, that didn't work. My audio worked out. Oh well.
If anything, Max, we can do this again some other time.
You still there, man?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Yeah. All right. So I don't have a live response. You said doing this some other time?
Yeah, because the delay is actually quite long. So I don't want this to be kind of one of those streams where it's, it takes too long to respond. So we can do this some other time if it works better next time.
All right. I'm going to try and fix it here in the next minute. Otherwise, we can call it.
Oh, you can read your article too. That's not a problem. I just figured maybe we could just talk about this on another stream and see if we can get things working a little bit better. But if you want to keep trying something, go right ahead.
No, I think I messed everything up.
How's the delay now?
Why does this not work? It's so weird when you come in. Like, I haven't done a live stream in a while, and all of a sudden, like, random crap just doesn't work.
Yeah. I don't know if you can hear me now without a delay.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Oh, it's still a pretty long delay. So You can read your article. We
the
can
heck?
do this another time.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Sounds
Well, that
good.
sucks. Well, it's good to
Well-
have you on, Frank.
Yeah, we can definitely do this again some other time. But thanks for having me on.
Now my mic is messed up too. I messed everything all up.
You still sound good.
I
So
messed everything up. All right. All right. Well, as long as it sounds good on your end, because coming back to me, it sounds terrible. It absolutely sounds terrible. Well, all right. All right, Frank. Well,
talk to you later.
yeah, we'll see you. Ah, well, that sucks. Am I talking in slow-mo or is everything all good? Because my mic is doing a thing that says it's very unhappy with me. I have literally never had that problem before where, it's like the speakers don't come through right. I'm guessing it's a StreamYard deal. I have to update some kind of nonsense or something like that. Yeah, the delay is too much. There's like 10 minutes or something a delay between it. Yeah, everything says green on my deal now. Yay or nay? So it's working now? All right. I don't know what the deal is with that. I've never had a problem with audio actually coming out. Like, who knows? Who knows? So, anyways, the old chicken there, Trudeau, apparently is running away. It kind of lets you know the people who are in power in these different places, if they were actually in power and weren't given the power by somebody to tell them what to do, they probably wouldn't flee so quickly because they would actually have a stake in the game. But all these little sock puppets, all they do is run around and you'll give me money and hookers, right? Yep, okay, and they'll do and say whatever they want. But as soon as somebody's got their number, then we're gone. You didn't pay me enough for that, right? Whereas the people who actually cared about the country and cared about the people and cared about, genuinely good things and wanted to have a good, strong country and a good, strong economy and everybody's blessed and all that stuff, all those people, regardless of a hard situation, they would hang out, and they would confront the situation and try to come to some kind of an understanding or an agreement or something. But no, chicken shit liars and fraudsters and vampires, they're gone. The first sign of anybody standing up, those guys are gone. And then on their parting gift, all of the dogs that they have that work underneath them, they go, and you go get them truckers. You go tow them out. Right. Or in Kazakhstan, it was, you can go shoot them. You can shoot anybody you want. Right. That, and then they hopped on a plane and left. It shows you what they are. Right. And the amazing part is that a lot of these guys have been in politics for like 30 years. And it's like, I don't know what's wrong with people. I don't know what's wrong with people. You see this stuff and you're like, let them get away with it and you pay them for 30 years. So Trudeau is no different. Apparently he is, Fidel Castro's kid, and whatever. Good for that guy. But it's amazing how Fidel Castro is a guy who's been isolated on a country for 100 years before he died, and had his own thing going right next to America. But his kids can go into American politics. Like, they're not all one big club. We're supposed to believe that Cuba is the enemy, right? North Korea is the enemy. China's the enemy. Russia's the enemy. And all these people are all intermingled completely in with politics. But they don't run anything. It doesn't matter who you vote for. They don't run anything. The second something comes up that they can't deal with, they're gone. They're gone. How it is. Trudeau again insisted Canadians are united. He also praised the handful of conservative lawmakers who have called for the protesters to leave Ottawa streets while imploring others to follow suit. I've seen members of the opposition call for an end to the blockades, Trudeau said. I salute that. I bet you do. This is time to put national interest ahead of partisan interests. Oh, yes. Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. What about the thing where the same guy who said that also understood that Federal Reserve banking was a terrible thing and created his own money, so the Federal Reserve banks had that guy, taken out in front of his wife? What about that? What did he do for his country? It was a pretty good idea with that speech. What did he do for his country? He got killed for it. Anyone stand up for it? Nope. Updates with Trump endorsement, blah, blah, blah. MSN. So anyways, in US, we're talking about this. So it's kind of like spreading, which is a good thing. And if legitimate, it's a great thing. It just is, in America, is it a psyop? Because America, whoever has the most money kind of does whatever they want. It's way above the law. But if it's a real thing, it's great because, you get some people riled up and then the whole thing spreads. And it's just a matter of sticking to it because, back down now. And then 3 weeks from now, everyone's got to get microchipped, right? That'll be next year or 2 years from now. We got Zooties. We got Zooties 2023. Everyone needs the microchip, right? So that is. Pepe Mama's talking about my voice. Well, it slowed whatever my computer chip and my microphone is. It slowed it down and I redid my microphone. So it hopefully is working okay. Otherwise, if not, then it's kind of pointless for me to even continue rolling on. I don't really have too much else to talk about. I really wanted to have Frank on here. So I don't know. I'll have to do some troubleshooting as to why I can't hear somebody on StreamYard. It's very odd. Very odd. As it wasn't meant to be. We can do it another time. Just kind of wanted to do a brief overview on it because I haven't done a huge amount of digging on all this stuff. I get the general gist of it, and it's not very complicated, guys. If you don't want to do something, don't do it. That's all there is to it. You don't sit around and cry and complain about, oh, there's too much taxes and there's too much this and they got the mandates and they want the cootie jab at the job and they want this and that, and it's just don't do it. Okay? Just don't do it. And if you have more people who won't do it, the better. That's it. You can't make a whole bunch of poor decisions and then say, well, it's their fault because they made me do it. They really didn't. Your jobs and stuff like that, that's really hard because you're losing your income and stuff, but they're not actually sticking it in your arm without any sort of consent. They're saying, this is what you got to do in order to get to have the privilege of being a slave for our particular corporation, right? And there's a lot of ways to fight that. You don't have to just go down with a whimper. There are so many ways to fight that stuff. Anyways, the best way to fight that sort of stuff is just not work. And people that don't want to get any jabs in your stuff, you just all stage a walkout where nobody works, and you do it at the most busiest time of day. They did that thing where, the protest against Wall Street, they did this stuff in high schools where the people were protesting Wall Street, high schools have walked out, right? Everybody just walked out. If you don't want to do something, don't do it, and that's showing your support, and that's doing something. Sitting around and crying, complaining, and all this stuff. What do I do? Oh, there's a portion of that where everyone has a period where they got to figure out what they're going to do. But, you can't blame the company if you went out and got jabbed and got paralyzed. It's not the company's fault. It's your fault. Right. And these guys, like I said, these trucker guys have already been jabbed as part of their business where they're crossing borders. Right. So they're already jabbed. They've already done all this stuff. And, being a trucker is not exactly an easy job. I wouldn't want to do it. And it kind of picked the worst demographic to actually pick on, because the truckers are self-employed. They don't have any beholden masters where they can say, I was just following orders. Right? They don't have that out because they're their own boss. They also basically have an entire living room in their truck. So they can go wherever and do whatever they want. It's really a great protesting vehicle. And they basically hold countries at hostage because they're in charge of the supply chain. I mean, it's something ridiculous. Like 90% of all of the packages and stuff like that are delivered by trucks, right? Of course, you have jets for things, and you have train things for things. But the actual delivery, even after it gets off a train, you still have to put it on a truck. Gets off a plane, you still have to put it on a truck. All your deliveries are coming from a truck, like a semi. And these guys don't work for anybody. Okay, they work for themselves. They pick the absolute worst people to mess with. And they back down immediately. Okay, they said, oh, we're not going to mandate jabs for going across the borders anymore. All right, well, cool. And these guys kept going. Not necessarily fighting for themselves, because they already won their battle. They're fighting for everybody else and all the other stuff. It's a great thing. It's a great thing. And you know what? In 2 years, no one's ever going to remember, because it's going to be completely washed off the internet. No one's ever going to remember. In 10 years, no one's going to remember cooties, just like hardly anybody remembers 9/11. Okay. Hardly anybody remembers the crash of 2008 in the housing bubble. Hardly anybody. Okay. Consumed by the great void in the internet and people's constant need to be entertained all the time. They can't retain any information at all. Sucks. So U.S. truckers are gearing up for convoy to D.C. This is apparently happening. March 1st is the deadline for the guy who is running this to go out to D.C. I don't know what their demands are. We'll find out. They're Americans. I'm guessing money, right? A lot of these groups are kind of having some like people who go in to say that they're part of the trucker group and part of this group, and they're really not. And they're saying, "Oh, I'm totally with them. You can donate here, and watch out for that stuff." But the whole thing seems to be pretty good deal. If someone is like, if someone can take a couple of months off their life to go, not like, was it Ottawa in Canada? I've been to a few places in Canada. Canada kind of sucks. It's like, I wouldn't want to sit and live on the street for a month in Canada. Not something that's a very fun thing to do. And those people are willing to go out and go do this, and, just for the sake of getting rid of this nonsense. And there are a lot of people who won't even stand up and say they won't take a jab. Well, if they said if I took the jab, I get to take my mask off. It's like, well, why are you wearing a mask in the first place? It was following orders, right? You know, obviously everybody's got to pay the bills, but the other token is there's a lot of open jobs out there, you know, and there's other things people can do, and you don't necessarily need to make the same amount of money that you were making before. You could probably live off less, just the consideration. And there's some things you don't compromise on. Let's see. The vaccination mandates in the private sector and at lower government levels. Notice they say lower government levels. See, you get some truth in here somewhere in some places. It's like, yeah, all the cops, yeah, all the hospital flunkies, like the nurses, yeah, you all got to get jabbed. But if you're a doctor, nah, we'll leave it up to your discretion. Or if you're a mayor, if you're, you know, congressperson, you know, and yeah, then you're one of the better people. That doesn't apply to you. There are good people, good teachers, good nurses, good police officers losing their jobs over these mandates. Yeah, the good ones are losing their jobs. Yeah, the good ones. Braves contends threatens access to basic services and the quality of life of truckers' families left at home while they're on the road. I don't know what he's going off on that, but sure. Braze or Braze is the guy who is leading the thing. And you always got to be careful when there's a figurehead leader. It's like, where's your paycheck come from? Stresses this is not a partisan issue and that those supporting the convoys are diverse politically and racially and by gender. The owner-operator of Independent Drivers Association is in opposition to vaccination mandates, but rather supports personal choice on vaccination. And while the association supports lawful protests, it is prohibited from calling for strikes because of antitrust laws. Well, I guess. I would prefer if they weren't so milquetoast. Everybody can do whatever they want. If you want to do this and you want to do that, and it's like, well, if only the world was like that, where we'd all kumbaya and hold hands, right? He's also stressing the need for all participants to conduct themselves peacefully and lawfully. We're all coming together. Well, what is lawfully? Lawfully, you already are not coming together lawfully because they're trying to jab you in order to keep your job. So protesting lawfully is a complete oxymoron. You got to understand what you're doing when you're fighting the government. We're going to fight the government. We're going to play by the government rules. And the government says we can protest as long as we stay in the First Amendment freedom of speech area. It's clearly designated over there. That's where we have to protest because the government says we can do that. Come on, guys. The convoy to DC 2022 organizers are planning to start the convoy from multiple locations in California. There will be other convoys originating in Texas, Florida, and Maine, to name a few. Braze said all convoys will ultimately converge in Washington, D.C. Announcements of the convoy's routes and dates became problematic February 1st when Facebook removed the page's group from service. When did Facebook tank by like 25-30%? They lost. The single greatest loss of any company ever in the history of existence was Facebook. They lost $500 billion in one day. It wasn't even one day. It was like 4 hours. They lost $500 billion of their net worth. I hope it was that day. I don't think it was, but I hope it was. The group had violated multiple community standards related to QAnon. What the heck is that? Is that thing where everyone thinks that Trump is going to go back into office or something? It's been 2 years, guys. He ain't coming back. Braze patently denies those violations, but concedes Facebook's rights to remove groups and individuals from its service. You can't want freedom from mandates and then stand against Facebook for removing stuff when that's well within their rights. No, it isn't. It isn't within their rights. Because there's legal protection. People who don't understand this, There is no First Amendment on other people's platforms, right? Everybody gets this. However, if you're not breaking the law, if you're not inciting violence against a group of people, if you're not doing these things that's actually breaking the law, it is illegal for them to censor you because they are protected by the government for anything you say. Okay, there was I forget the name of the legal precedent that was set back in the 90s when the internet was out, where companies were afraid to have forum boards and they were afraid to have opinion pieces and they were afraid to have things where people could comment on things because the way the laws are written is they're ultimately responsible for anything that any random idiot on the internet says because they have a forum board and they're hosting it. So they are responsible, like having people over at your house. You're responsible for what happens in your house. Well, the law went through to saying that the people who provide the service, internet service providers, website hosts, and all these things, they are not responsible for what people who use their service are saying. Okay? They're protected. That means that people can say whatever they want as long as it actually doesn't break a law. And then when it does break a law, then it's supposed to be under discretion or whatever. You remove their stuff. But if no actual laws are being broken, they shouldn't be taking down people's stuff. But being that people don't pay for Facebook, it's not a paid application. It's not a paid anything. The people who use Facebook are the product of Facebook, okay? People who don't understand how business works. You don't pay anything for Facebook. If you don't pay anything to use these different applications or like GoFundMe or whatever it happens to be, if you don't pay anything to use it, that means that you are the product. You are the product. You are being sold to other corporations. So you comment that you like somebody's shoes on Facebook. Facebook sells that information to a shoe company. You're the product. Their money comes from other people. It doesn't come from the people using Facebook. But there are other groups out there, such as Patreon. Okay. There are groups out there that are paid services, paid to support like ongoing donation services, where they're kicking people off, the truckers things and the anti-jab guys and all these people, they're kicking them all off. And it's like, well, wait a second, we're paying for this service. We're paying to do this. You're protected under all sorts of statutes. And there's a problem with that. There's a problem with that. And a lot of people are fighting these guys. And, when you can print money out of nothing, it's pretty easy to keep a court case going forever and ever and ever. Bear suggested those interested should continue on to monitor Facebook, Twitter, and Telegraph for updates. Well, guys, all those are centralized. All of these, Facebook, Twitter, Telegraph. Well, Telegraph, a little bit less so. It's at least encrypted. But, that's the thing where it's like, everything's going to go to blockchain, guys. And you got to support the stuff that's so completely decentralized that nobody can stop it. And, library, as far as video stuff, is a good one. No one can stop it. If you want to get something out there, now, granted, there won't be a whole lot of people that see your information, but at least it won't just get scrubbed. Now, YouTube can get mad at me and they can pull down 8, 9 years, 10 years worth of my stuff in an instant. There's nothing I can do about it, right? Just because I probably sometime 10 years ago said something they didn't like. I've already actually had that. They gave me a strike they gave me a violent strike. One of those ones that's really bad. They false information regarding cooties, blah, 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 blah. This is it wasn't just like a copyright. Copyrights are nothing. It was a community guideline strike, which is usually like, we'll take your channel down for a month, right? So I fought that. I didn't even know what it was. I saw the email and I get so many of them, I didn't even really care. But when I uploaded one of my videos in the last week or something like that, I looked and I actually saw what it was that they flagged as medical misinformation related. And it specifically said related to cooties. And I'm like, what? I haven't done anything. This is going to be good. And I look at, and it's Russell Blaylock talking about MSG and neurotoxins and things in the food additives that basically fry your brain as soon as you eat them. That's what it was. And the video is actually from 10 or 12 years ago. And they flagged that as a medical misinformation cooties. And I said, this video is from 2010. And they actually brought it back and they didn't cancel me. But hey, you know, if I didn't contest that, then my channel would be shut down. It's the world that we live in. And they're going to get rid of everything that's centralized. I'd say starting with the government, but obviously that ain't going to happen until the money is decentralized. That's the main crux of everything, the linchpin that holds everything together. It all goes back to the money. It all goes back to the money. So we're going to take a look at chat here, and then I'm going to shut it down. Try and fix my speakers so I can get Frank back on here and we can talk about this, because I actually want to put a little time into seeing what's going on with the truckers and actually kind of maneuvering my way around the internet and see what kind of news is coming out of different countries and what other kind of projects are stirring up, because you can search on different search engines. You get basically nothing. If I went through Canada and Canada doesn't want to talk about it, there's not really a whole lot there. And apparently this guy who is doing this Blaze guy who's doing this thing in America, he was on Fox News or something. Shepard Smith, is that a guy? Is that a Fox News guy? I think he was on Shepard Smith, and you still can't find hardly anything about this stuff. So it really wants to be shut down. It was a lot easier finding all about Kazakhstan getting burned down than it is about this. And it's kind of one of those deals where, like, I think the cooties thing was kind of going away. And now with this out there, it's like, oh, we can't back down to terrorism, right? We can't back down. Even though they were probably going to rescind all the orders anyway. So now they're just trying to figure out what they're going to do. I mean, who knows? Who knows? All right. So what do we got? What do we got? Kevin H says, you don't understand why they're still pushing mandates. It's to enslave you. That's it. It's not, there isn't any purpose. I don't know if you're new here or what, but COVID doesn't exist, guy. Doesn't. They might call something cooties. That might be some sort of a thing they decided to label cooties. But the actual thing of this wildly infectious, terrible disease doesn't exist. People are getting flus. People are getting colds. And it's proven because countries have been taken to court. And the country could not provide evidence that it existed. Now they're talking about variants. So tell me, country, how do you have a variant of something you can't prove exists that isn't alive, because viruses are not alive? And how can they mutate into another variant? There's a whole big logical train of idiocy following the whole thing. But because the entire world and the media says that it exists, it's the emperor with no clothes. And hell, even if you believe it exists, fine. You still have to admit that it's pretty nonsense to get 5 boosters and then still get sick, right? You still have to kind of admit that. And that's probably not, probably not a good idea to work for minimum wage and have to get, some experimental jab in your arm just so you can keep your minimum wage job. And that's the new America, the new Canada. Probably not a good thing. Oh, I'm going to get dinged for medical misinformation. Well, we're talking about cooties here. We're not talking about any other mythical disease. We're talking about cooties. Frank says it was mandated for the police in Ontario to be jabbed, but they quickly took that back when the truckers rolled in. Yeah, you know, that's why I say that there isn't any good police left, because you have to be the type of person who looks the other way to crime to even be a part of that system. There are a few other occupations that are like that, where you just have to ignore it and have this little separation in your brain, your little cognitive dissonance, that I'm doing good. I'm sure we might break the law sometimes, but they deserved it and they needed to go to jail, and you have this cognitive dissonance retard thing. And it just kind of excuses everything. I got wife and kids to feed. I'm just doing my job. Where anybody who had any sense at all would not be in that job. And as it rolls on, more than likely, people who are slightly awake to things probably shouldn't have their kids go in the military either, and then cry about their kids having to get a jab in the military. It's like, what is your kid doing there? Sorry, that's a little bit of a vent. I have to say the obligatory, I'm sure there's one good cop out there somewhere. Shep says I can be whatever I want to be, even the president. I don't think I have enough blood in my body to sign all them contracts. So Kevin says he agrees. So you're up to speed, right? I don't play, the thing about this channel is I'm very harsh and very forward and very blunt, because I don't have time to mince words with people and argue things back and forth. It's like, this is what it is. This is how I see it. If you see it differently, we can talk about it. But this is what it is. I mean, the facts are in, talk about cooties nonsense. That's all it is. And anybody complying even to the slightest bit of that nonsense is caving into nonsense. It's like, well, yeah, of course I believe in yellow unicorns. Yeah, I see them flying all around, right? Is that what what's next? What's next you're going to believe in? Of course, there are a lot of people out there who are perpetual babies who need to feel, that they're, what do they call that? There's a lot of people out there who need to, project, and it's called like rising yourself up amongst people and social flagging or something like that, where you're like trumpeting out your thing. I got my jab. I got this. I'm doing my part to save grandma, because they don't have lives. They're empty, soulless people with nothing going on, who can't think for themselves. And they're just like, I'm doing what everybody told me to do. I can't think for myself. Virtue signaling. There it is. And unfortunately, the people in this country, at least in America, and a lot of these places, that's the majority of people, right? You got like probably the majority of the people in this country live in cities where that's how they think. And then you've got all the people with sense who basically keep the country running, that are all the rest of middle America, where there's nothing going on. I mean, America is essentially, your 50 states with your 50 big towns. Okay. Which is where all the money gets sucked up to pay for these people who are all talking about, I'm doing my part for grandma and this and that and the other thing, who couldn't feed themselves. As soon as they don't have a Twinkie on the shelf at the store, then they go crazy. They want to be mad. And then the entire rest of the country is like open space. with people who actually have to work to, get some stuff. They actually have to go work a job. They actually have to have a garden. They actually have to do these things, who have like what you would call street smarts, or just plain logic, or just plain whatever. Okay. But that's like coming to like the minority of people in America. And of course, all the big voting areas are the big cities. Not that it really matters. I don't personally think it matters about voting. Everyone's got their own ideas on that. Prepping mama's got flu and strep and bacterial pneumonia. What? And then they jab you after the fact? What? Yeah, unfortunately, if you wear a mask, they don't tell you about that whole bacterial pneumonia thing, which is actually what you're getting sick with if you wear a mask all day. You're breathing your own bacteria. Just pretty bad. Bacon toast, great honking. Absolutely. Yeah, Jeff Berwick has a thing on that. Apparently, that's a big deal in Canada. Like I said, we're not getting this information, like the memes and all the good stuff and all the Twitter feeds and stuff. We're not getting that in America. But yeah, they have all sort of music and memes and all these wonderful things in Canada talking about their trucker thing going on. So yeah, check out dollarvigilante.com, I think is what it is. Kevin, you listen but don't comment. No, that's cool. You can comment here anytime. I'm open to any sort of civil discussions, but yeah, I'm just going to say that I'm right. What I say, I'm going to say that I'm right. Just kind of, I ain't got time to, once upon a time, we'd mix it up with these guys who are like work salvationist types. These guys who are like, well, the Jews, they had to work, they had to work so they get saved, right? Well, the Christians, we got the free gift, right? We don't have to work. And it's like, so God's a liar then, right? And we get into all these back and forth things, and it's like, I ain't got time for that. I ain't got time for that. Yeah, cooties is nonsense. You don't work for your salvation. You're saved and you're saved. Once saved, you're always saved. Salvation is by grace through faith, not of works, lest any man should boast. God doesn't owe you anything except for what he promised you. Okay, that's where we're at here. I don't have to waste time debating all that stuff. Prepping mama, where are you at? You're talking about everyone is signing on to it. Are you in Canada with your bare shelves? She's talking about, she's saying many of us have masked up, but I think that many just found other jobs, even that. Yeah. And here's the thing. We can go back circa 2.5 years ago, right? It was about this time, and Trump said, we got cooties and we're going to handle cooties and do this. And I've got a thing in place where we're going to handle cooties and we're going to try out our new emergency cooties thing, our new emergency pandemic, whatever. And my first thought and reaction was, oh, they're running a PSYOP. And I told my wife, and I'm like, okay, well, they're running a PSYOP. They have some new program and they want to see how their program works. So they're going to run a PSYOP. No big deal. And then there's, oh, no, it's a real thing. People are collapsing in the street. And you look at it and go, okay. And you find out that the tests, or the guy who developed the test said they don't test for anything and he was killed. And you find out all this other information. And after about, March, April, May, I think it was like May or June. Like 2 years ago, I'm like, this stuff doesn't even exist. It doesn't exist. Turns out I was right. Not very long after that, it came out where people are suing the government, and the government can't prove nothing. What's a Cox postulate? What is that? That thing that actually isolates and identifies bacteria and diseases, and that's what's required in order to have any sort of a vaccination, and that's what's required to have any sort of a classification, and that's what's required for any sort of scientific study. Where's the Cox postulate, guys? They acknowledge that it doesn't exist. Okay, it does not exist, and all of this stuff is just a fantasy show, right? All of it's all fantasy show. But back then, going through that, I was of the time of like, okay, let me find out about it's a Rockefeller program called Lockstep that was developed in 2010, and it was put through exactly what we're going through. And somewhere around that time, when I found that information, found out also that the Federal Reserve and the Federal Reserve banks of all around the world, they agreed to pay for the PSYOP until 2025. Okay. And I told everybody back then, I'm like, okay, this is what's going on. And, keep your head down. Don't give up nothing. Just keep your head down and, we'll just see what happens, and don't push back, too much. Don't wear a mask. Okay. Do anything you can do to not get any sort of jab. Yes. Don't do anything like that. And it's kind of like a wait and see and bide your time and see how successful their little PSYOP is. It turns out it's flipping phenomenally successful because people are too flipping retarded with their lollipops and just, anything that messes up the smallest amount of comfort in their lives. They're like, oh my gosh, no, what do I do? They just give all their stuff away. Give everything away. Give it away. Generations to come, give it away. Give it away. I just don't want to be fearful anymore. And it turns out that the American population is largely a bunch of losers who have absolutely no fighting spirit. Absolutely, they're useless. You're just like drones. Plug them in. But now, after 2 years, apparently people are kind of warmed up a little bit to where like some people are actually willing to fight, as in people have lost enough and given 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 enough to where they don't have anything left. And they're sitting in where I'm at with like no money. Okay. And then they're like, oh, I guess I better fight now. And it's like, how much better off you would have been when you had money and you had a job and you had all these things to fight then, as opposed to waiting until you had nothing because you didn't fight. Side rant there a little bit. Sorry, but it's good to see people are finally starting to waken up because they just don't have any choice. And it's like, it's sad that it comes to that. When you have resources, that's your time when you choose. Okay. Obviously there are some things where like, if you can't feed yourself for a day, if you don't have your job, you're going to have to kind of cave to things, which is why you plan, which is why you try to not be in those situations. Okay. Everyone's situation is different, right? I get it. But if you are getting your jab because you don't want to have to wear a mask at your 80 grand a year job, you don't want to be inconvenienced, then there really isn't any place for you to do anything other than just be a little drone slave. And you shouldn't be voting. You shouldn't be having kids. You shouldn't be doing nothing. You're just an automaton. We'll plug you in right next to the robot where people can just tell you what to do. And you can go, okay, what time is football? When's the Super Bowl? Did Halo come out yet? The new Halo game? Oh, it is useless. Some people may not be. Some people, it's probably a little harsh. I'm like, no, I'm sick of this stuff. We're so sick. People who have been awake since before this thing even started are so sick of hearing about this stuff. Okay. Didn't want to talk too much about the trucker thing because I'm like, is this just a total psyop? Because the goal is, as part of Operation Lockstep, to completely destroy the food supply. And I did a video on it. Okay. I did a video on this is how supply chain actually works and where the vulnerabilities are with this stuff, because that's their goal, is to make everybody more dependent on the state. And it appears to be organic, but it also at the same token is a great tool for the state to say, we can't have truckers anymore. We have to have the entire system set up by government, and you have to be a government employee to be a trucker, right? That's where this is going. And just wait, a year from now, I'm going to be like, well, there it is. You have to be a state government approved person in order to drive your truck, right? This is why you got to fight for stuff, because it only gets worse. It only gets worse, and you only get less resources, less and less and less and less and less. Just your dollars are inflating at 15%. It's crazy. And people who say that that's dumb, I've changed prices at the grocery store. I know, Prepping Mama, I watched your video. You said that you couldn't believe soup was $1.77. It used to be $1. Well, it's $1.89 where I'm at, and I'm in a poor little Hobunk town in Minnesota, right? I just raised the prices. I just raised them. Yeah, your food's going up, guys. Food's going up. We do still have plenty of stuff on the shelves, but the way that supply chain works, you could have one run on the stores in one day before like a snowstorm or something, and there'd be nothing on the shelves the next day. And that's the way supply chain works, the way it's been set up. Then you got to wait for that trucker to come drop off more stuff so you can buy lollipops from China with red number 5 that gives you cancer. Everyone taking shots signs the forums. Yeah. I had, particularly in my case, and like YMC, pretty harsh and like cold and not, caring about people. I care about people when I know them. If I don't know them, I don't care. The thing is, though, is that even people that we know, you tell them the solution to their problem about their cootie jab or their whatever they have to do, and then they still don't do it. They still go get the jab. And I don't know. I guess they're not strong enough people, but anytime anyone hands you anything to sign, that is a contract. And if someone wants you to take a jab for an employment, there's a lot of things I would do with that. But the thing that anybody should do is say, sure, whatever the company's name is, accepts all liability for any damages that result from this jab. That's it. You're not getting jabbed because the company ain't taking liability. That's it. It's the same play card that I told people 2 years ago. Me, myself, and I personally would have way more fun than that, though. But if you don't want to take it, as soon as you write on there that the company issuing it, now here's the fun fact, guys, is that these companies will never sign that. Never. Do you know what the fact is, though? They are taking liability just by making you do it, just by suggesting for you to get a vaccination. They are taking liability already. They already have liability. All you're asking them to do is put your name on the paper. They already have the liability. They still won't do it because nobody has the authority in the company, because a corporation is just a stack of papers. Nobody has the authority to take on that liability. That's where you get to have fun with it. And you say, whoever your menial idiot supervisor is, you want to take liability? If you take liability, I'll take your shot. You want to take it? You just put your name down there. And the thing is like, they can do whatever they want to with you. They'll have to send your paperwork off to legal, and they may lay you off or whatever, but they have to give you unemployment. There isn't a failing on your part to not do your job. There's not you not showing up to work. It's they have a new contract they want you to do that you didn't agree to when you signed up, And then they present this new contract to you and you just ask for some clarification. And all you're asking is, I'll take whatever you want as long as you take the liability for it. That's it. And of course, it's a pain in the ass. And yeah, of course, you got to fight. And that's how it is. That's how it is. The other option with that sort of stuff is if people want to push something that says you need to get some sort of jab or something, and you go, well, who's the doctor who's recommending that? Right? Because is it a prescription? If they're recommending medical advice, it's prescription. So then you say, well, put the doctor's name down who is recommending that. Because that, again, is a liability issue. And no corporation has a doctor on staff to recommend these medical devices for people. It's a whole bunch of legal things. And some of them are a lot of fun. Okay. This is the person you're dealing with these masks and these jabs. They don't have any clue. They're just doing their job. They don't have any clue. They probably got all the boosters and all the everything. I'm just doing my job, right? They have no idea what to do with you. So you goes all the way up to the top. When you're talking liability, it goes to the board of directors for whatever company you work for. Unless it's a privately owned company, then it goes to the owner. But most 99% of people in America work for some big faceless, nameless corporation that is eventually owned by BlackRock. Doesn't matter if it's Walmart or Menards or Home Depot or your local grocery store. They're all owned by BlackRock. Okay. It's got to go to BlackRock. Take liability for this stuff. And the other trick you can pull, which is what military does, is you say, I have no problem taking all your shots. You just got to take them out of me when I get done with the service. Because they own you when you're in there, but not when you're out. And if they can't take it out of you and, take their hardware back. So there's a lot of different ways you can go about all this stuff. But I don't expect anything is going to be done on that front because people haven't been doing it for the last 2 years when, the economy was doing good. People were working. And when you have the tools to fight, that's when you fight. You don't wait until you're down to your, last nickel and a thing of ramen. Governor in Illinois announced to be phasing out the mandates March 1st. Yeah, most everybody is. Illinois must be one of the only ones that is still doing it. Even Minnesota doesn't, as far as I can tell, unless you're like in closed environments. Like you can go to the government building and the DMV and all these things, but if you're actually in a meeting room with somebody, you're supposed to wear a mask or something. I don't know. Anyways, the whole end of all of that stuff was Kazakhstan. Okay. As soon as Kazakhstan happened, the British, whatever that Boris guy, he's like, we're not doing anything with COVID anymore. Right. And a few other countries followed suit. The interesting thing about what's going on in Canada is Canada was the first, some province in Canada was the first one where the guy took him to court over some menial ticket, like a $2,000 ticket for not having masks in his gym or something like that. And he took him to court to say, and all he said was prove this stuff exists. And they had like the heads of the friggin' government and they said they couldn't do it. Okay. And that from that day forward, everybody in that whole province, there was no more anything to do with. That was years ago now. And since then, everybody has followed suit. Everybody, Freedom of Information Act requests. Okay. You don't have to believe me. You can put in a Freedom of Information Act request to find out anything about the proof that cooties exist. There isn't any. Okay. So all this stuff has been going on for years and people are still just content because their Netflix hasn't been turned off yet. I got my Netflix. I got my lollipops. I'm okay. I got my video games. I don't know. You called me, there's a word for that. Where we always think that everything should be perfect all the time. Yeah. People join in that believe in it, but I don't think it started organic. Yeah, the trucker thing. According to Dollar Vigilante guy, his friend who is involved in it said that he thought that it was originally a covert operation sort of a thing to shut down supply lanes, but actual real people who gave a shit kind of took it over was the sentiment they got from it. And that's just hearsay. Don't know if that's true or not, but it sounds about right. I mean, the goal is to shut down supply lines and to make sure that nobody has any food, because people will do anything that you tell them if they don't have any food. That's the goal. That's been the goal for a long time. And, in the last 10 years of the stuff that's in the supermarket isn't even food. Okay. If they have to put organic on something and it's an apple, you know that you don't have food in your store anymore. Why does it have to say organic? Isn't it just an apple? Oh, no, it's got spider genes in it. Oh, yeah. The stuff in your store is not food. Okay. It's not food. I think that's about all that we've got here. I don't know if anyone has any last questions or anything. I've kind of ranted off enough. I'm still kind of concerned that my ability to hear people on StreamYard has gotten messed up. I don't like rebooting my computer. I'm mining away. Mining. I don't like rebooting the computer. It causes all kinds of problems. Well, thank you, Prepping Mama. Yeah, no one is even half aware. Well, that's where we all are, which is why, there's channels like mine. I mean, there's guys that have been doing this stuff. I can name quite a few of them off the top of my head. Well, Dollar Vigilante, of course. Actually, I guess I can't off the top of my head. They're all vague. I'm very bad with names. But there's been, David Icke, as I like to call him, David Icke. A lot of people are aware to a lot of things. Unfortunately, telling the truth doesn't make anybody any money. It really doesn't. And so a lot of people who actually know what's going on and know what the truth is, they also have to get into a side hustle that might be talking about space aliens. Oh, Area 51. And they might be talking about all this stuff that is complete nonsense, but they have to do that because that's what people will pay for. They want the ride. People don't want reality, and they don't want to be told the truth that, hey, your government's trying to kill you. People don't want that reality. They ain't going to listen to that, and it doesn't pay the bills. So there isn't a whole lot of incentive for people out there to go do this sort of thing. And yeah, it's one of those seek and you shall find deals. Seek and you shall find. And yeah, slice of sanity with sarcasm. Well, if you look at the world at large, then the people that don't believe in the vax and the cooties are all we're kind of the minority. It's like we're the crazy people, and that's fine. Idealist, that's what it is. I'm one of those crazy idealist people, right? Well, I have a whole bunch of faults in all sorts of different areas. But if you hit one of my buttons, that's just like, no, that's an idealist thing. I'm not budging. It doesn't matter what happens. It doesn't matter what happens, because you wouldn't be able to live with yourself if you cave on these basic principles, right? And yeah, I'm still dumbfounded by the fact that things have gone on this long without people rioting. But then you look at, I learned a lot about the baby boomer generation, and I have no idea what happened to those people. But now I understand why America is never going to do anything. It's like, It's gone. It's gone. Man, Gen Z just wants to play video games and, putts around on their phone, and it's like, this is gone. As long as the government gives them their high-speed internet and their phone, then they don't care. As long as the boomers are, have a hot nurse in their nursing home, they don't care. And, it sucks how nihilist people can be. And I'm sure they go to church every Sunday too and all this stuff. It's very disappointing, very disheartening. But I can't let that affect me. I can't say that that's okay to be that way. No, I'm not going to mess up. I don't have any kids. I'm not going to mess up somebody else's future. Just take your jab, take your money, take your UBI. We'll live off the government dole and all this stuff. Just messing up people's futures. This is not my thing. It's not my thing. I mean, I can't imagine living that way either. Like being a congressperson or a dirty cop or something. Like, ugh. Talk about torture. Anyways, there's a few people out there, and a lot of people are waking up. Everyone's at their own level. And as far as people are talking about this thing, I'm as far over on the total crazy side as you're going to get. So anyone you bump into who's even remotely like me is going to be a little bit more palatable. I'm just tired of it at this point, Kevin asked, what's the housing market doing up there? Heading for problems in the housing? Well, no, the housing market goes down every year between November and January. So it should be on the way back up. There's a credit problem right now because they're going to raise the interest rate by 0.5%. And until the market figures out what they're going to do with that 0.5% interest rate. Once the market figures out what it's going to do, that it's going to be back to business as usual. On that note, though, with the housing market temporarily down, the lumber is down about 30%. So if you have a house project that you want to do in the summertime, it's a good time to buy wood. Yeah. Honestly, I'll talk about crypto for a minute here before I get out of here. The only thing you can use to hedge your stuff is by buying commodities and, things that you are. And what I mean by commodities is not like a big investment strategy. Well, I'm going to buy pork bellies and corn and I'm going to be rich. No, it's what I mean by buying commodities is buy the things that you normally would buy. Just buy more of them when you're getting a good deal and be looking for the good deals. Okay. That's it. If you're the investment minded person and you have an extra $100 a week or a month, you buy Bitcoin. There isn't any question about anything. You buy Bitcoin. That's what you do. Semi-quasi, not investment advice, but no, it's investment advice. If you're going to invest in something, everything is it's not an investment, it's an education. Once you have $100 in Bitcoin, you'll start paying attention to the markets. You'll start being interested in what people have to say about cryptocurrency. You'll start being interested in this stuff, and you're going to have to learn it anyway. You don't want to be sitting there. Why don't any of you explain to me how the Federal Reserve dollar came to be and how it works? Nobody can. Okay. Takes a lot of study to figure that one out. No, it's worth your while to have money in crypto. And you say, what about gold and silver? Gold has lost money in the last 10 years, guys. Oh, I'm fine with precious metals and all that. Fine. But January 30th, I looked up the price of gold and it was like $1,700 or I think it was $1,900, $1,999. That's what it was. January 1st, 10 or 12 years ago, it was $2,000 an ounce for gold. Right now, it's like $1,800 an ounce. So you put $2,000 into gold for an ounce 10, 12 years ago. And after consistent 2 to 5% inflation every single year on your dollar, your gold ounce is still worth less than what you paid for it when your dollar was worth more. Okay. As an investment, it's not an investable product. It's negative return. And that's because the whole gold market is controlled. If you have gold and it's physical piece of gold, yeah, great. Physical silver, yeah, great. But not an investment. If you want to invest in hopes and dreams and thin air and stuff like that, you may as well get something for it. Invest in Bitcoin. And that's it. Now, I'm not one who's going to say that the dollar is going to go to zero or anything like that. I'm just saying there's countries all over the place who are just switching over to the old Bitcoin. And if you have to work a week's worth of work just to pay for your Netflix or whatever, you have to work an entire week, 40 hours just to put gas in your car. But you could go to Mexico, where they're maybe on a Bitcoin standard, and the equivalent or whatever in there is the same as it is today in Bitcoin. You may want to do that. Or some other crypto or whatever. It's just kind of the fiat slave system is kind of going away. And just by the very fact of the supply chain thing and talks of wars, right? Every time that the debt to GDP ratio hits a certain point, every single time they've brought out the war. Where are we going to go to war with? Who are we going to do it? But if you're not worried about the dollar and you're on a different system, you don't have to worry about it. And like I said, it doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter how much you'd invest. It's just the point of investing so you can understand how it works. And the differences between what the government is going to come out with, the digital dollar, which is the same thing as fiat, except they track you and they take the taxes out as soon as you do anything with it. You give your kids a $5 allowance, they're taking $1 instantly for taxes for your child's income. Yeah, everything is going to be blockchain. So as far as for like personally, if you want to really survive the system, you fire up some Bitcoin miners and you just do that. But go move to Texas or South Dakota where they don't have, I think Texas does, but South Dakota doesn't have income tax for the state. And they're really nice to miners and they have cheap power. Go there. Go mine Bitcoin. Yeah. Prepping Mama says, got you to invest into it. Well, I didn't get you to do anything. You're doing it. I'm just the one who's explaining the benefits to it. And I definitely don't recommend that anybody do like I do. And I go all in and I wouldn't say play the markets, but I study the markets, not so much recently, but the last year, probably 8 to 10 hours a day, I was studying the markets and what was going on with it. Okay. So I got to know a little bit of what's going on. And I don't suggest that people do that. I suggest people should buy a little bit of Bitcoin and keep it in their Coinbase, keep it in their crypto.com wallet. Okay. I don't say take your funds off and self-custody and stake and do all these wild, crazy things. It's like, no, if you're investing, $1,000, maybe $2,000 total, you just keep it on the exchange on Coinbase or crypto.com. You don't need to get robbed like me. You don't need to worry about any of that stuff. I'm on a totally different level. And that's what I'm talking about. It's just invest in Bitcoin. Nothing else. Nothing else. Sure, there's other good projects, but know that there is 15,000 literal shit coins, like 15,000 things that are dust that you can invest in on the crypto exchanges. There's like probably 20 investable things. So just go Bitcoin. Bitcoin outdoes the stock market. It outdoes the commodities market. It outdoes gold and silver. Bitcoin outdoes everything every single year, and it has ever since it was created. So just go Bitcoin. Okay, that's it. And figure out why it's, why it's good. And it's not just video game digital internet money. Okay. That's the first thing that people did. As it was me, that was me, what, a year and a half, 2 years ago. That was me. Oh, it's a Bitcoin, and that's old, and Bitcoin's old and it's slow, and all these ideas. It's just video game money. Yeah, I had that same idea not even 2 years ago. Okay. So much more than that. Bitcoin essentially is freedom from the monetary system, right? Provided, of course, everybody, provided, of course, a lot of people, obviously there's countries that have adopted, but if you're in a country that's not nice to Bitcoin, and then you have to leave the country. You'd have to go someplace where they are nice to Bitcoin. But it prevents a whole lot of this nonsense. Like if cooties and the jabs and all that actually cost money that they couldn't print out of thin air, none of this stuff would exist. None of the psyops would exist, because you would have to pay for it with something. And that is the glory of Bitcoin. Anyways, as far as that goes, on the note of the Bitcoinage and investing, it's not a horrible time for Bitcoin right now. However, last week was a way better time when it was like 35,000. Anytime Bitcoin goes below 40,000 is a buy. Okay. Below 40,000 is a buy. In the low 40s, it's a meh. It's okay. If you're long-term holding, you're going to be fine. And it doesn't matter what the price is if you're just going to hold it for 5-10 years. Okay. But if you're looking to like buy it and then flip it in 6 months, you want to be buying below 40. And that's all there is to that. Yeah, enough of the crypto stuff, I think. Prepping Mono's got to get some sleep. Yeah, I got to get some sleep too. I got some big days tomorrow. Anyways, good talking to you and everybody else out there. Hopefully I'll get my stuff straightened out. Maybe I'll come on to see if Frank does a stream. Maybe I'll go on his to see if my thing will work if I join somebody else's, because I have no idea why I couldn't hear him. Very disappointing. Anyways, guys, thank y'all for showing up, and take care. Support the truckers and anyone who's out there doing something for freedom, because it ain't easy. These people are basically homeless, not taking their contracts so they can go putz around and fight the government. Come on, guys. The least you can do is send them some bucks. Despite what GoFundMe thinks, right? These centralized organizations that want to steal their money. Anyways, we'll figure it all out. And yeah, until next time, guys, y'all take it easy.